What is up, movie viewers? Dena Views and Reviews here, asking what you're watching. Today, I am watching the animated series called Good Times Rebooted. Now, this animation has voiceover stars that include the main character, Reggie, who is the father, is played by J.B. Smoove. His wife, Beverly, is played by Yvette Nicole Brown. And their children, Junior, played by Jay Farrow, Gray by Marcy Martini, and Dalvin is played by Slink Johnson. Wanda Sykes, Cree Summer, Tisha Campbell, Christopher Forrest Smith, the Brad Godfrey, Bernadette Stanis, Jimmy Walker, Heidi Gardner, and a host of other people also had their voices used in this animation. It is created by Renata Shepard and Carl Jones. Credited writers also include Eric Monte, Joshua Chris, Eric Gleb, and J.D. Samuels. It is directed by Tyree Dillahay, Aaron Brewer, Anne Marie Roberts, and Tristram Wapples. It is produced by Norman Lear, Seth MacFarlane, and Steph Curry. On April 12th, the animated series called Good Times Rebooted premiered on Netflix. For those who may not be familiar with or know already, the original Good Times show premiered on CBS about 50 years ago, I would say. It was not an animation, it was an actual sitcom. And it was a sitcom about a black family that was living in the projects. They was scratching and surviving. The series Good Time is a spinoff from the show Maude. Remember the song from Maude? And then there's Maude. And then there's Maude. And then there's Maude. But on the show Maude, she had a maid, a black maid that worked for her, and her name was she was the actress Esther Rose, and she played the character Florida Evans. So Good Times was a show that gave a peek into the lives of this black maid and her family. Esther Rose starred as the mom, once again, Florida Evans. John Amos starred as James Evans, the father. Jimmy Walker stars as JJ Dynamite, or James Evans Jr., the oldest son. Bernadette Stanis as Thelma Evans, and their only daughter. And Ralph Carter starred in this show as the little brother Michael. We also had Janet DuBois as the nosy neighbor and family friend Winona. When I was a child, I always called this character Bologna. I never knew until I got older the proper pronunciation for that character. But Good Time was set in 1970s Chicago, and it was mainly popular because it featured a black family. It was black people, and it was appealing to us because we actually got to see ourselves. There was a reference to ourselves that was on television weekly. Black people, an entire black family intact on television, which was primarily dominated by white shows, much like it is today, sitcoms, and it was good to see yourself, a reflection of yourself. But this family had the mother, the father, and the children, and they were represented. Even though they were a poor family, they had morals, they were proud, and they were determined, and most of all, it was just good to see them in front of us every day, even though they had the daily trials and tribulations. But it was clear it was a loving, wholesome black family dealing with whatever life threw at them. And it was popular and relatable for many black people here in America. I do not know why it was called Good Times, because they didn't have a whole bunch of good times, but I mean, it was relatable. It was beautiful to see a peek inside the black family and their life and their structure, to show them dealing with things that were going on in the world at that time. An intact black family. It was just so popular. Even back then, there were a lot of sitcoms, but like I said, there just was not a lot of us. Even today, it's hard to find sitcoms that cater to Black families in particular. So it was just good once again to see us represented. Even if they were not the wealthiest people, it it was just good to see them. Now later on, there were shows that had wealthy Black people portrayed. For example, the Jeffersons, Cosby Show, Fresh Prince of Bel Air, and it gave us a glimpse into what wealthy Black Americans may have been experiencing or what it looked like, and that's a beautiful thing. But I think Good Times and what's happening, they kind of set the tone because they were more relatable because the majority of people live much like them. Of course, like I said, there's always the exception. Good Times showed us a strong Black father. He was working hard trying to take care of his family. Even though things were thrown in his way, it was taking care of family that was the main focus. They had a spiritual mother trying to guide her children and keep the family intact and keep them on the straight and narrow. So whenever you watch Good Times, you got a few laughs, but there was always some kind of lesson to be learned or some kind of message hidden within the storyline. And I personally look forward to just seeing these beautiful Black people that looked like me dealing with some of the same issues that many in the world were dealing with. Now, later on, I found out that Esther Rose, behind the scenes, she fought to make certain that the Black man was included in this, that it had to be a full, intact Black family. So props goes out to her. It made the show and the storyline very interesting. And her, what she done behind the scene, and John Amos as well, they made it more interesting and not just this stereotype that we often see. So shout out to you, Miss Esther Rose, for standing your ground and demanding better representation for us. But let's fast forward to today's so-called Good Times reboot. It is, of course, an animation. Now, the setting kind of looks like the exact same apartment as the original Good Times sitcom was in. A roach infested apartment, of course, where the roach is singing. It looks more dilapidated, I must say. Now, I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I only got to the second episode and I only watched part of it because I just could not watch any more of it. When I was watching it, it made me feel some kind of way. And so many words just crept into my mind while I was watching this animation. And the words that were there were despicable, distasteful, disrespectful, disgusting, and even discriminatory. Those were the nice words that were in my mind. I watched this animation and I felt utterly disgusted at what I was looking at. That someone would think that it's perfectly okay to put this kind of crap out representing or calling it a reboot of Good Times, which is known to have represented Black culture. It is absolutely insulting. I don't know where to begin in analyzing this. Should I mention the sexualized representation of Black women portrayed by the huge butts and the big breasts and the ass shaking, the drug selling baby, the gun violence, the complete chaos and dysfunction within the so-called family that was supposed to be the descendants of the Evans, the drug selling thug baby put out of the house by his father? This show was just full of stereotypes and typecasts that tend to come out of the mind of racist non-Black people. So calling it a new generation of Evans does not remove the same old antiquated racist mindsets that depict such stereotypical things that I saw in this show. It was just predominantly tomfoolery for me for this animation. This is what it represented. And as I was observing this debris, I felt offended, taken aback, and just insulted by the fact that so many Black people signed on to this project knowing what kind of rubbish was contained within it. It is disappointing, just to say the least. I don't think any other group would sit idly by and accept such mockery of a people, of its culture or group. I mean, it should not be acceptable. There should have been outrage from the inception to shut this down before it even got to this kind of drivel. And I just can't help but ask the question to the Black people involved in this project. Did you really, honestly give this rubbish the thumbs up, the okay, and found it acceptable representation of Black people in Black culture? I found it to be a bunch of antiquated jokes. They were lame and not even witty, just pure nonsense. And I just labeled it tomfoolery. It was like watching the white guy in blackface screaming, "Mammy, oh mammy." And I just cannot believe the number of Black actors or people who did voiceovers that chose to participate in this absurd depiction of Black culture. Why was there no real homage to the character and what actor Esther Rose wanted to portray with this sitcom? Why didn't it stick to the original concept and then evolve into current day? Did not the writers, producers, and others have a meeting, a consultation with others who could advise them on how most in the Black community might respond to such an impertinent piece of work beforehand? If they didn't, they should have. And they should be taken to task for coming up with such an insolent, racially insensitive, anti-Black, stereotypical, distasteful, and very offensive caricatures. I found the characters depicted to be very offensive to Black America, and I further believe that the entire animation should just be removed, and furthermore, it should be disassociated from the Good Times TV show. This animation was just done in bad taste. It's distasteful. So much so that I gave it 0 stars out of 5. And I'm giving it a thumbs down. They need to go back to the drawing board because this ain't it. Find better writers, producers, and creators that will not stereotype or disrespect Black culture as they attempt to call it a reboot of Good Times or disassociate yourself from Good Times. I did not like what I was looking at. It didn't feel right, and it certainly did not look right. So I am definitely giving this a thumbs down. You don't even get any stars from me. This has been Dena Views and Reviews. You can subscribe and leave me your comment on what you thought of this poor excuse for a reboot of Good Times. I am inviting you to join me right here weekly for a movie review and our recommendation, and I want you to remember, it's my view. Now, what you watching?